I love that music. It's like a wake up call there. Good morning, Kelowna. I'm Jim Check with Kelowna Now. I have on the phone with me Ian Burns, all the way in from Ottawa. And we're here with your morning uh, news entertainment show, the really big show. And traffic moving quite well in Kelowna and down and right in the heart of Kelowna there, east and west moving fine. And that's a live shot in there behind me. Starting off with Trudeau branded as an insufferable fool by Musk and chastised by Ontario Premier Doug Ford as well.
Yeah, very bad day for our friend Justin, but he seems to have it seems to have been quite a calculated speech or part of his speech where he implied that it was somehow an example of women's rights being under attack that Trump won the election in the US.
Mm.
He seems to have thought about that because it
Yeah,
wasn't exactly off the cuff, it was like a prepared statement. It was like a 5 minute speech that he made. So
and
it's
I'm
kind of, in a way, he's dug his own grave, hasn't he? As usual.
and I've been thinking about this like all night. It's just been bugging me. Like, why would he do that? Because it's not like he was attacking Donald Trump in that. He's attacking the American voters. Like he's attacking America, like the citizens, and saying that they are a bunch of misogynists and that he is way above them. And that's why Elon Musk comment that he's insufferable. But maybe, and this is the only logic that I could think of, is that it was his way of paving the way for him to like resign and put Melanie Jolie in his place. That's the only thing I can think of is like he's preparing the road by saying now he's going to make the ultimate sacrifice because there needs to be a female leader and he's going to step down and make the ultimate sacrifice for the good of Canada. And because he knows he's
Well, I
not
mean,
going to win the election, so he's looking for a way out, I think.
that would theoretically allow him to depart with what he considers to be the high ground, still in possession of that high ground, moral high ground.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe. I mean, it's a lot better than it's a lot better than going into the election and being absolutely trounced and getting the Liberals down to like 20 seats or something like that, isn't it? I mean, it would be it would be better for his legacy, probably.
Because there's no way, like, if he has advisors around him, that nobody would advise him to make that speech. Because I mean, nobody liked it. Because it's not like he's insulting Trump, which has been his MO for about 3 years. He went right after the American voter.
Yeah, and I guess kind of implied as well that that Trump was a misogynist as well. I think he didn't completely miss out Trump as a
No,
target
no,
with that
no.
comment. Yeah,
But he targeted the American public, though. Basically, you know what I mean? It's just,
yeah,
and while they're
very
in the
similar
meeting,
to me. It sounds very similar to me to certain lectures that you would hear in the 19th century during the Christian revival, where
yeah.
politicians would attack the people for backsliding on piety and not going to church often enough and things like that. It's almost like a religious rebuke of the
Yeah.
American people.
So we have a picture of Melanie Jolie there too that I just pulled off of one of the tweets out there, and this is from I don't know if Rommel, you can put that next image up there, but there was a feature in New York Times as well, preparing her to be, the next leader of Canada. So there seems to be some paving of the road in
Yeah,
that
the
comment
signs
yesterday.
the signs are there, aren't they? Definitely. And
Yeah.
and if you've got your ear to the ground, you can hear them coming, and I guess that is one. That's a big one, isn't it? That why else would she have done that big profile?
And this is a source from Blacklock's reporter. Like sounds like her husband was one of the top recipients of a $45 million future entrepreneur grant loan program. Imagine that. Hey, there you go. So that's the only thing I could come up, and I was kind of like wondering, like it didn't make any sense for me to make those comments yesterday. But if that's the case, that may be the logic. So look for perhaps him to step down in the coming weeks because he's facing immense pressure now from even the premiers. Doug Ford said it was brought up several times. Like, why are you doing this?
Yeah, and EB is no, hasn't been very complimentary of him, has he? In the last sort of 6 months or last year, something like that.
Yeah.
Really, EB's been quite hostile to him, despite their kind of bromance that they've had
Yeah.
for a few years.
Moving on to Kamloops store I interviewed. That interview is now up on Kelowna now. We got a little clip to play of it from just a small clip here.
26,000 SKUs in our system. And with the program that we use, we would have to download it all into some Excel files and then go through manually and change all of the ones that need to be changed.
Because it's not all toys, right? It's not all toys.
It's not all toys. If you have a Lego set that's aged over 14 years, it doesn't count. Games don't count. Crafts don't count. Art supplies don't count. We carry decorative items, ornaments, cups and bowls for kids. We have all that kind of stuff. That doesn't count. So we have probably a third of what's in the store wouldn't need to be changed, and then the rest would. But we would have to manually go through each SKU and change it, which...
Yeah, it's kind of... There you go. If you want to watch that full video, you can go to KelownaNow.com. You can find that. That still hasn't passed. That's still not... It still has to pass the Senate, and that there's another reading of it today because it went through 3 readings and has not passed because they're saying it's nonsense and just for political gain. But will they pass it? It's likely because it's a very liberal-centric Senate, but they're definitely dragging their feet on it.
Yeah, I've just a question that I'd want to ask you. It's just come to my mind there. Ask you as an accountant, what would happen if they sold an item that wasn't under the scheme, but they sold it without GST? Would they be scrutinized by the CRA or something?
Well, they would owe
What
the
would happen
tax.
then?
They would owe the tax on it.
So the CRA would get them in there when they filed, kind of thing.
Yeah, they would owe the tax on the item that they sold that wasn't, because you can't sell stuff tax-free if it's taxable because you owe the tax on that regardless.
Right. So it seems like there's going to be quite a lot of confusion there. Like a lot of people, a lot of retailers are going to sell things that they think are covered, but aren't.
And that's what she's saying. And if you watch the full interview, is that she's probably going to have to pay anywhere from, depending on her accountant, because she has her accountants file her GST returns, anywhere from, because they're going to scrutinize it and go through it and test it, and that she's probably going to pay anywhere from $500 to $2,000 just for that GST return.
Bah, that's terrible, isn't it?
Yeah, because they're going to go through it, and if they find problems, you find problems like as an auditor, then you're going to dig more and dig more and dig more, and then it's just it becomes a a tough slugging thing. Like about a third of her items don't qualify for the thing, and 26,000 SKUs, and she's not sophisticated like some big box store where they can kind of do everything through a program. So she's doing everything manual through your spreadsheet, right? And it's going to cause, again, watch the full interview, it's going to cause some tension at the till probably too, because what people hear is different than what they understand. They hear that there's no tax on toys, and then they bring something up to the till, and it says, well, there's tax on that because it's for over 12-year-olds, and then all of a sudden, there's going to be like, well, it's a toy, and anyway.
Yeah, that's another thing I hadn't considered, but that's right. They're going to be disputes, aren't there?
Yeah, there's going to be some detention for sure.
Yeah, it seems like you've thought about this more than our dear leaders.
They could have called me and I could have offered some advice, but they didn't. More headwinds for retailers too, especially at this time of the year. Lots of shoplifting going on, and then Kent and Nick went down and they talked to Corporal Mike Gauthier, and we got a little clip here to play for this as well, and you can watch the full thing on Kelowna Now.
Was this 6-day focus on shoplifting, and 47 people got arrested. Can you fill us in on what you're able to do to catch shoplifters?
Yeah, the frontline workers in this particular project are the LPOs, the loss prevention officers. We work closely alongside them. We communicate either over radio or cell phone. Just when a theft is occurring, it's their responsibility to conduct surveillance, whether that be on foot or on CCTV cameras. When they observe the theft, they let us know, and we're essentially on standby waiting outside for the suspect to come out.
Okay, so places that have an LPO.
So yeah, you can go watch the full interview on KelownaNow.com. And it is, like the smaller retailers really can't afford to have, loss prevention officers and that. So it is definitely only the bigger stores that are likely going to have that. So it mainly puts a really tough burden on some of the smaller stores out there.
That's a familiar theme, isn't it, in recent
Yeah.
years?
Tough slugging for sure. Tough slugging for retail. The postal strike. Again, still, what are we in day 48 or where are we at? 48, 49?
I think it's 27 now.
Oh, is it
27 or
27?
26.
Sorry. I guess I don't have the
So it
clock
started
running
on
here.
November 15, so we're coming up to a month, yeah.
Oh, there you go. And Canada Post says unions demand well beyond what it can afford as the strike drags on. I don't know. I think, like maybe if they went back to work and did arbitration, that might be, and then maybe, I know they're using this time of the year to put pressure, because it's obviously this is why they did it, because this is the time when people are going to scream the most and want a resolution. But that's why obviously this is the time that they're doing it, instead of like, hey, say we can negotiate, come back to the table. Obviously, there's not a lot of faith between the two of them.
No, they still want, I believe it's a 19% pay increase, and again, the more important problem is that they can't seem to agree on like timetables and things like working practices, because Canada Post, as they've said 100 times, they're just trying to adapt to what's become of the market now, thanks to FedEx and UPS and so on, and they feel like the union won't let them adapt. But then the union keeps saying that they want, a more dignified life, basically, more like better pay and better conditions.
Yep. Danielle Smith, we should have a segment for her. We should have a little corner, because the Danielle Smith looks like she continues to do the work of our federal government. She's the one that says she's announcing a border security plan in response to the Trump tariff. She's trying to get things done for Alberta for sure. So she's not waiting around for somebody else to solve the problem for her.
And Ford, I would say, Smith and Ford, they're the people that we've heard the most from, I would say. Yeah. Rather, like, obviously Trudeau's in there as well, but not so much from his ministers, who you'd think would be on this. Like, you'd think everybody would be on this and there'd be announcements every day, but yeah, not so.
Yeah, so here we go with the carbon tax stuff. The food professor weighing in, because the Toronto Star put out a report, an unpublished, non-peer-reviewed study funded by Environment Canada, claiming the carbon tax has no impact on food prices in Canada. Meanwhile, the food professor have worked on 2 peer-reviewed studies in high-ranking journals presenting a different perspective, and he's got the links in there. You can go to his X account. Additionally, 11 papers are set to be published in January that highlight how carbon pricing can exacerbate social and economic inequities. So again, here's one funded, non-peer-reviewed, claiming that carbon tax has no impact. Imagine that. Stephen Gibault puts forward a report that supports his position on the carbon tax.
This guy, the food professor, has been pretty relentlessly targeted as well by, activists. I guess you call them left-wing activists or environmental activists. He gets so much abuse, and yet, he's I don't think he's openly political or anything like that. He's just trying to scrutinize things like the carbon tax, but also all kinds of laws related to agriculture as well.
And then CBC, I don't know, it's not marked sponsored content, but Saturday marks the beginning of the Liberal government's 2-month GST holiday and will give Canadians a break on other costs of some essential goods. And notice how they put the "some" in there. And they have the list of the items getting the tax break. It should say sponsored content. Or, well, they are funded, so there you go. But aren't you supposed to mark it?
He's standing in front of salad. What's that, salad cream or something? Is that going to be covered?
So those items there wouldn't be GST-able anyway. Those are food items, right? Like regular grocery items.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
So that's what I mean. That's all part of it. If you stand in front of the chip aisle, because that's where you should be standing, like all these essentials, Doritos, Cheetos, corn pops, whatever else, those are the ones that will now be tax-free. And you can stick a rotisserie chicken in there too, I guess. But
he should have been sat on the sofa with a beer in his hand, eating Doritos and playing video
There you
games.
go.
That would
There
have
you
been the
go.
best one, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because that's what you're getting the tax off. And this is Donald Trump named Time Person of the Year. And also at the New York Stock Exchange this morning, ringing the bell. We're going to play this clip for you. That's good there, Ronald. You would think you were at a rally, but he's at the New York Stock Exchange. You know, I have said this many times. The markets really liking this change, absolutely liking it, chanting USA and cheering him on as he rang the bell for the New York Stock Exchange. The market's really liking it. And then I think you said, we did that talk yesterday about the $1 billion. If you're going to invest $1 billion, they're going to fast track you. And today you said he announced something on the tax rate.
Yeah, we've got the tweet a little bit further on, which we can discuss
We can
later.
come to it. Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
come to it then. And then we had, well, maybe not. The Zuckerberg also changing his mind on Donald Trump. Is donated $1 million to the inaugural fund, for a big inaugural fund. And also President Xi will be there. He's been invited anyway. So interesting for sure. Very, very interesting. Things got a little mixed up
I
here. We'll
wonder
come
if
back to it.
Biden is going to turn up.
I'm sure Biden will be there. But
Yeah.
Xi's
He wouldn't want to miss out on his friend being inaugurated.
I guess the question is, will Justin Trudeau be there? We know that Premier Daniel Smith will be there.
Well, maybe Melanie Jolie will be there.
There you go. You have to be invited, I think. National Post. And I guess they did a poll, and it says nearly half of Canadians favor mass deportations, and says there's too many immigrants. And this is, again, you're going to start to see people demanding a Doge in Canada as well, especially an accountability Doge, because, like, you know, the amount of money that they have not accounted for or will not account for is what I think is frustrating most Canadians.
But also, I think the rapid increase in recent years in jobs in the public sector, I mean, there's going to be a reckoning for that, obviously, because an economy can't function like that.
And that's what they're doing in the United States, is they're cutting government, so cutting red tape, cutting everything. So it's going to be really hard for Canada to compete on the world stage for attracting money if it looks so good in the United States and it's so favorable. If you're in, we're right next door to each other. So if you have $1 billion, or where are you going to deploy your capital?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Biden did some of this as well, didn't he? Kind of laid the groundwork with that Inflation Reduction Act, which was kind of like, and obviously Trump before him, Trump's first presidency, where they started to really incentivize companies to come back to the US in many cases because they've gone off somewhere else. But I mean, with what happened in Europe, and it continues to happen in Europe with the energy crisis and all the struggles in Europe, they're all just going over to the US, you know? Like, I mean, they've kind of pillaged a lot of Europe's commercial wealth, and I think it's just gonna continue. And Canada obviously is also going to be targeted.
Holly Doan from Blacklocks, she said the media track record on disclosing government-paid experts is poor. On June 21st, 2021, CBC failed to disclose financial interests of the pundit Trevor Tombe, who received sole source federal contracts while criticizing the Alberta government in online commentaries. This expert thing has been overdone. We've seen it for the past 3 years. It's something, when you hear that word expert, a lot of people just cringe, right? Like, here come the experts.
Well, we know about experts in our line of work, don't we? With people that describe themselves as experts
So
deciding that we don't count as journalists,
yeah, that's right.
even though they
So
aren't journalists themselves in many cases. Good
yeah,
for them, eh?
so-called
Good for
experts
those
say
experts.
that the Kelowna now with the most experienced news team in the Okanagan here is not a qualified news organization. Obviously, because we don't toe the line. Maybe I don't know. Leslie Stahl was out there on there's a YouTube video out there, and she's actually coming to terms with it. And she said that the reality is legacy media is dying, and that they need to figure out a way. And she just doesn't know if there is a way for legacy media.
Yeah, well, deception and bias is harder to sell nowadays, isn't it? And I think that is why there's been so much of a boost in the ratings of podcasts and so on, and it like what you would call independent media.
And then if you listen to this thing right here, Jim Cramer from his Money Show there interviews Donald Trump at the New York Stock Exchange. This is really, really important to listen to.
Your embracing of crypto, very different from the previous administration. Strategic Petroleum Reserve like for crypto?
Yeah, I think so. We're going to do something great with crypto because we don't want China or anybody else, and not just China, but others are embracing it, and we want to be the head. We're going to be ahead of AI. We're going to be way ahead of AI, and we've got to produce tremendous amounts of electricity. You know that it's unbelievable when you think that we need more than twice what we already have. If you think that's pretty for a specific industry, but we'll be able to do it. We have Lee Zeldin in charge of the environment. He's going to be giving us very strong approvals, I think, and he's going to make sure everything's good and clean and proper, but he's going to give us very fast approvals.
Natural gas.
Yeah, so that's, and we didn't play the whole thing, I don't think, but anyway, it is, they're laying the groundwork to become the biggest business center in the world. I mean, they already are, and I think they're just really bringing a lot of that back, and they are entering what, you know, has been termed as a golden age. And I've heard other people out there say, even in the New York Times article, it says, if Trump delivers on what he promises, this is truly a golden age for the United States of America. So even the Times is coming around to it, or Time Magazine, I should say.
Yeah, well, it's a trend that's been going on for a while, but certainly if they bring the jobs back to America, and there's no reason why they shouldn't now, because they have so much energy. You know, they're the world's largest oil producer. They've got so much natural gas that they don't really know what to do with it, and they've got all of the land. They've got the most skilled labor force in the world, pretty much, and the most capital. So they kind of have every advantage, don't they? There's no reason why they can't uh, just fly on, really, and leave everybody else in the dust.
Well, I think we do have another piece on that interview just on crypto, so you can hear that. Can we play that clip? No, we don't have it. That's okay. There is more there. You can go and find it yourself. Just that they want to be the head of crypto as well in the world. And let's head over to markets then. Gold broke that $2,700 mark. You have that chart there, Rommel. And then it's fallen back a bit this morning, off $35. We're just waiting for Rommel to find that chart. Oh, there you go. We're going to get it here in a second. Nope, that's Bitcoin. It's the one before that. There you go. There you go. So it just fell off that thing. So again, chop, 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 right? So Bitcoin at 102,368. Likely, I mean, that was clipped a few minutes ago. Where is it at exactly right now? 101,712. So, you know, still very volatile, but holding that $100,000 mark so far. And then pops along this line here. It could use that as a springboard for sure. And then the mayor of Vancouver says he wants to make Vancouver a Bitcoin hub. There you go. And he wants to convert a portion of the city's reserves into Bitcoin. Sounds like he's talking a lot of Donald Trump talk there. Where's his mega hat?
Yeah, well, he also said he was going to give $10,000 of his own crypto to the city. So
There you go.
bit of a
I
strange
mean,
situation.
it sounds like, like crypto is starting to, I mean, if the Americans adopt it, it's definitely going to spread around the Western world faster than Europe. May be one of the things, because Europe tends to want to put regulations and like, I mean, I think that's, if Europe had to claim anything, and maybe Canada too, is like, how can we regulate everything, right?
Everything that the Americans invent,
Yeah.
sadly.
Canadian dollar, in that just above the 70-cent mark. Again, not a healthy looking chart by any means. The ECB cut their rate today by 25 basis points. Still lower than us though, because they're at 3 now. Canada's at 3.25. Chrystia Freeland was posting out there talking about how Canada's the first in the G7 to cut the most, but like Europe has always been lower than us. So she forgets to mention that. Plus, Canada's in a recession, fails to mention that in her posts, and fails to mention that like our real estate market is really starting to hurt, like especially in towers and that construct. Like there's hardly any stuff going on in the construction market, right? So other than rental construction. And then we talked about this a while ago, and I'm just going to mention this. Droop Dynamite, we talked about it when it IPO'd. That was the largest IPO to date on the TSX. So if you're following that, it hasn't really moved off that IPO level of $20. So, I mean, if you believe in that brand, there you go. You can go take a look at it. They do have about 300 stores in Canada and the US, and plan to add about 50 more by the end of fiscal 2028, including the UK. So that Dynamite, which is Garage and Dynamite, I think it is, that you'll be coming to the UK. And then we talked about this one a little bit, that XOVR is a way to get into SpaceX. No, not yet on that one. They ended up buying more of SpaceX, and now that their holdings are now 12.3% of their holdings is in SpaceX. So interesting. If you're interested in SpaceX, this is one way, this is the only way for retail investors to get a piece of SpaceX, because right now it is a privately held company. If you're so inclined. In our AI segment, robotic sphere polices the streets in China. Coming to RoboCop, coming to a city near you. Hey?
Yeah, running away from a cop ball.
These RTG robots can operate on both land and water and reach speeds of 35 kilometers an hour, 22 miles an hour, and endure impacts of 8,000 pounds, so 4 tons, powered by advanced AI, equipped with facial recognition technology. They're designed to identify and immobilize criminals. There you go, enhancing public safety. The robot is capable of shooting nets at people to trap them until authority arrives. Wow. And this reflects a glowing trend worldwide. So these little... It's going to be tougher to yell at a robot. You know what I mean? When people start screaming at a cop and, and they say, oh, you can't do nothing. Robot's going to like, here's your net.
I'll just argue with the ball about a parking ticket or something, or speeding ticket. It's not going to take it.
I've watched the video on this. It's pretty scary stuff. Very intimidating.
Well, it's like a sci-fi movie, isn't it? Like, especially if they start like sending out autonomous drones or something like that can fly inside of buildings, then we really are in a sci-fi movie.
Elon Musk, and then this is just a tweet somebody put out, I think from SpaceX. My plan uses the money to get humanity to Mars and preserve the light of consciousness. And Elon agrees with that, of course. That is his mission, to get to Mars and make humanity a multi-planet species.
He wants Mars.
EVs. 68 EVs coming to Australia in 2025. So they don't have like the tariffs that we have here. So lots of EVs heading to Australia. Lots of like Chinese-made EVs and like legacy automaker EVs and Teslas. Australia really getting a lot of EVs, the Chinese ones in there, and a lot of those are very competitive. And then she made it to the international stage when she was at one of her grandpa's rallies, Kai Trump is the granddaughter of Donald J. Trump. And her vehicle of choice, there you can see it. She's got a video, a YouTube channel, and an Instagram and all that stuff. And she's very popular, like well over 500,000 followers. She drives a Cybertruck. So everybody said that Donald Trump wouldn't like EVs. His daughter is driving around in a his granddaughter is driving around in a Cybertruck, and I'm sure she didn't buy that on her own, but maybe.
Yeah, Trump's, he's good at changing his tune when he needs to, isn't he? And I think that's probably happening with EVs.
Well, there was a Cybertruck in his motorcade too when he went to SpaceX. I'm not sure. Maybe it was Elon himself in that motorcade Cybertruck. But these Cybertrucks are bulletproof. They come out of the factory like that. Like you don't have to add to them. And then this another reason.
Well, it'd be useful for Trump.
There you go. And yeah. Another reason, Teslas have 200 moving parts to operate compared to ICE vehicles that have around 2,000 parts. I just put this out here just so. I was in the elevator yesterday. I was going down there, and one of the people from the floor above got on there, and she had a key ring. Like it looked like a massive ball, and it had 3 big fobs on it, BMW fobs, like massive. And I said, wow. I said, like, you're you got the keys to the universe there. And she's like, well, these are just all the fobs for the cars and all that stuff. And I said, wow, you could buy a Tesla. You don't need any fobs. And she said, you don't have any fobs? No fobs, just your phone. But yeah, so like, like in an EV, there's no transmission, no catalytic converter, no timing belt, exhaust plug, spark plugs, fuel filters, radiator leaks, fan belts, fuel pumps. I can go on and on and on. There's just none of that stuff. So there you go. More reasons. And then you put the meme in, so I'll let you. Oh, there you go. That's a funny one. There you go. And we can all see what's going on there. Mark Zuckerberg, who was not exactly great to Trump when he banned him from his social media platform and also silenced a lot of the conservative voices, now says his turning point was definitely after the assassination attempt, no different than Elon Musk's turning point. Because that day after the assassination attempt, when Donald Trump stood up and said, fight, 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 to them, I think Mark Zuckerberg said, that's badass. And Elon Musk said, I'm all in. And I think they recognized him as an American hero at that point. I know a lot of people are going to think that's very good, but Time Magazine did as well. And so I think a lot of people's opinions are changing. A lot of even media outlets are now starting to say, I think he's different this time. He's different this time. And he is surrounding himself with some really strong people too, right? And I think everybody that lives I think everybody that lives in that echo chamber of hate is going to have to come to terms with it.
It's interesting you said about him changing everything, because Doug Ford said that I think it was yesterday, where he's like, I think he referred to him as a different kind of cat. I think that was his language. And it is right, isn't it? He is different. He's not. Oh. He's a lot more kind of confident, I think, in what he's doing. Because during the last presidency, it was almost like he was kind of like, he would suggest something and then almost like wouldn't follow through. He almost cowered away from it, didn't he? But now
he was
it
more
seems like
an attack dog last time around, because he was always reacting. And he was always, instead of like having a plan and going with his plan, he was always reacting and acting like an attack dog. And maybe that's some advice for some of our leaders in waiting is to move on from being an attack dog and to start being more of a statesman and saying, here's the path forward for Canada. Because, I mean, what he's doing with AI and electricity, because we know that electricity is one of the biggest things that AI needs, right? And if you want to build these large supercomputers, you need a lot of electricity. That means diversified energy. That means solar, wind, nuclear, oil and gas, LNG, and the one province sitting in the catbird seat with all of that is Danielle Smith, and she's really acting like a leader, and hopefully she can drag the rest of Canada along with her. And like you said, maybe Doug Ford is going to rise to the occasion as well.
Well, Doug Ford has threatened, something that we haven't talked about yet. He's threatened to cut off energy supplies into New York State and Michigan and somewhere else, some other state. I mean, he's certainly, he's not rolling over anyway. He's putting out big threats, Dougie.
Yeah. Well, there you go. And we've got this new good news segment that we've got going on here. And we all end with good news. And why not, right? There's a big parade downtown Kelowna, the holiday parade. What used to be in Kettle Valley, this parade, now for the first time ever, they've brought it downtown You can go on KelownaNow.com and you can find all the details for this. And the parade route, it's going to start at City Park, and it'll make its way down Bernard Avenue to Bertram Street before hanging on a couple of rights and head west on Lawrence Avenue back to its starting point. So I think it starts off, the Rockets have their afternoon game, and I think with the teddy bear toss and all that stuff. So again, you can find full details on this on KelownaNow.com. The teddy bear toss game starts at 3 p.m. and then the parade will be happening right after that. So lots of festive action. Get the young ones out there. You've got a couple of young ones. I guess it's a little bit of a trek for you, but
I know who will be there though, and that's the Kelowna atheists. They'll be there with their clipboard to make sure that there's no
know who else will be there?
displays.
Our own Nick Check will be there, and he'll be live streaming that for people that can't get out there, and that's how you get to watch it. You can watch it live streamed on KelownaNow.com. Who doesn't
Brilliant.
love a little bit of Christmas parade? Just, the Macy's parade is one of the biggest parades ever.
Yeah. Well,
A couple of movies I
we
watch
do
every
love
Christmas
them, don't we?
without fail with the kids. It's a Wonderful Life and Miracle on 34th Street. So there you go.
Yeah.
With that said, anything else you got for today? We're a little bit over today, but we had a really big show.
No, I mean, it's a very, very busy day, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Very busy bit of news. So
Yeah.
I think we can leave it at that. There are a few other things to discuss, but I mean,
There's
we
a
just have to,
jam-packed
we have
day
to
for
keep
sure.
it compact.
Lots going on. Like I said, the big one that I take away from that is Donald Trump named Time Person of the Year, and some media is starting to recognize that we could be standing at the brink of a golden age. And even it seems like even Joe Biden has kind of like stepped out of the limelight to allow Donald Trump to kind of basically enter the world stage.
Yeah, we haven't heard much from Joe Biden except pardoning every.
Anyway, we'll leave it at that because we can keep going here for a long time. But we do thank you for watching KelownaNow.com. You can follow us on YouTube, follow us on X. You can visit our website on a daily basis. We have a daily newsletter that goes out. You can go on the site and you can sign up for that. It goes out 365 days a year before 7 a.m. Without fail. And we can deliver that news right into your inbox. But we update the site 24 hours a day too, right? So anyway, we thank you for watching KelownaNow.com.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local.